Welcome viewers of WOW Television. My name is Tsogofatso Motaung. We are continuing with our series for 2016 elections, Nation Builders. Today we are speaking to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, a legend in South Africa's political history. Welcome, Prince.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
It's just an absolute honor to be talking to you today. You know, we're just commenting about how young you look. You know, you are turning 88 in August. How do you keep young?
What have I done to deserve this flattery from
You know, it's amazing. Even when you're looking at the elections, you are running with young people that are less than 40, or Musi, or Julius, but you are still at it and you're still strong. How have you managed to remain strong and, you know, physically, and you're still able to contribute so much to society?
Well, I think that's really just a blessing from the Almighty, because you are quite right. I'm no longer so young, you know. So therefore, I just thank the Lord that although I've got a chronic ailment, which is diabetes, but otherwise my health is very good, because the diabetes is stable, you know, it's under control.
Wow.
So I just thank God for that.
For that, wow, that's really amazing. And I think, you know, before we can even talk about 2016 elections, we want to just reflect on, you know, how the political landscape of South Africa has changed since the time you began being actively involved in politics.
Yeah.
You know, what are the things that when you look back at, you know, are the highlights of where this nation comes from?
Quite. Yes, really it is so, because I've been in public life for more than 60 years. And during those decades, I've seen so many things, I've gone through so many things. You know, we went through the liberation struggle itself. I was actually mentored, you know, by no less a personality than Dr. Pixley Guy Salaseme, who is the founding father of the African National Congress. He was my uncle. He mentored me, and later I was mentored also by Inkosi Albert Luthuli, who was our leader in the African National Congress, and who was actually awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, people like Madiba were, of course, not only colleagues but friends, because, as you know, Madiba, among one of the few people with whom he corresponded throughout his incarceration in jail, and those letters you can actually find in the book A Prisoner in the Garden, and also in the book Conversations with Myself. So I was fortunate, you know, to have struggled with those giants, to rub shoulders with those giants like him, Oliver Tambo, and many others, too numerous for me to mention just now. And the founding fathers of the African National Congress in 1912, when they founded the African National Congress, actually declared that the liberation struggle would be conducted through non-violent means. And that's why Inkosi Albert Luthuli got the Nobel Peace Prize, because the African National Congress was conducting a non-violent struggle, you know, and were committed to negotiations. So when the regime, the apartheid regime, closed down all our movements, African National Congress, PAC, and many others in 1960, after the Sharpeville tragedy, then Inkosi Albert Luthuli sent Mr. Oliver Tambo outside to start the African National Congress mission in exile. And Mr. Tambo and I kept in touch. In fact, our first meeting was in '63, when I was passing through London to attend a meeting of the Anglican Church, the Congress of the Anglican Church in Canada. I went and saw Adelaide Tambo, his wife, and she actually phoned him and he flew from Lusaka to meet with me. But he was uneasy about it, more than I was. He said that there was this Bureau of State Security here, the acronym of which is BOSS, and it had spies all over the world, he said. And he said he can actually swear that they will know about me meeting him. I thought he was being younger, you know. Always, we young people always think, you know, older people were just saying things. But of course, he was talking out of experience.
Yes.
Because in fact, when I returned to South Africa, my passport was confiscated by the apartheid regime for 9 years.
Sure.
But then we kept in touch through emissaries, and sometimes we met overseas. We met in Stockholm, we met Kenya in 1974, we met also in Nigeria with Mr. Tambo, and we exchanged emissaries, passed messages. In 74, I went to, after attending a seminar in Addis Ababa, which both of us were supposed to attend, by the way, but he actually advised that I should go alone because he said there was this issue of imposing sanctions and divestment on South Africa, which the African National Congress Mission Exile was committed to. But we inside here could not, because in fact I addressed many meetings here in Johannesburg, in Durban, in Mangaung, in Langa, in Cape Town, and I would put the question whether in fact we should support imposition of economic sanctions and divestment. And people in the chorus would say no, we would starve. So in 1974, then when I went to see Dr. Kaunda, the president of Zambia, he advised me. He said that they admired the fact that at that time, from the point of the leaders of SADC, I was the lone voice, because all our leaders were in jail somewhere in exile. And he said, but in order to be a cohesive force, he said, I should start a membership-based organization. But then I could not do that because I was ANC. We were working with Mr. Tambo, so I consulted Mr. Tambo, who then said that I should in fact start Inkatha, which started in 1975. In 1979, then Mr. Tambo requested me to come to London with a delegation of Inkatha, because there was this raging debate on the issue of economic sanctions and also on the armed struggle which the ANC in exile had decided to wage. So we had a discussion in London lasting 2.5 days, and we could not agree. I could not embrace the armed struggle. And secondly, I could not support economic sanctions. You know, being in touch with the people here and the people actually having reacted negatively to that, I could not support it. But our discussion was very friendly and not acrimonious at all. Then Mr. Tambo said he was going to come back to me. This was in November when we met in London. He said in December the NEC of the ANC was going to meet in exile, of course, and come back to me. But sadly, he never came back to me. The first thing that surprised me is that he issued a statement saying that the meeting never took place. Because the Sunday Times, which is our largest newspaper in this country, had a big article saying that Tambo and Buthelezi met with delegations in London. Of course, we, that is Mr. Tambo and myself, did not necessarily want that to be known. But when it leaked like that, then they accused me of having leaked it, but in fact it was not me. You know, the chief of the Sunday Times Bureau in London was a young lady by the name of Suzanne Voss, and she was in touch with Mr. Cap Zungu, who was actually the representative of the ANC in London, and he's the one who told Suzanne about it. So then, all along, you know, there was a big controversy, of course, because as ANC, the ANC did not support the homelands policy, where the regime wanted to fragment us into ethnic nations and give us independent status. But actually it was Mr. Tambo and Nkosi Albert Lutuli who sent Mr. Clopas Sibande. Mr. Clopas Sibande was actually the interim leader of the ANC here in the early 90s. He was sent by them before that to say that if the regime imposes the homelands policy on the Zulu people, they are urging me that if other traditional leaders, Amakosi, elect me, I must not refuse, because I'm the only person who can actually abort it by not allowing it to achieve what the apartheid regime wanted to achieve, which was actually making us foreigners in our country, South Africa.
Wow.
So then what happened is that we now and then leaders of the homelands would meet, with Mr. Forster, the Prime Minister, Mr. Forster, and we would raise these issues, of course, even the release of Mr. Mandela, which he said he will never release him because he claimed that in court Madiba boasted that he was a communist, which of course was not true. The only thing that happened in court was that there was a document in which Madiba had written in his own writing on how to be a good communist, but he never boasted in court his claim. So anyway, I got very frustrated because the meeting that we had with Mr. Forster were not achieving anything. And when Mr. P.W. Porter now took over, it was even worse. Because I said to other leaders of the homelands, let's not allow them to fragment us by going one by one on an ethnic basis with them. Because our problems, our African problems are, we are in this, all of us together. It's a very interesting meeting that we had in Cape Town to meet with Mr. Porter. We hoped that we'd achieve what we wanted to achieve, to see him together. Only to be disappointed when we got there. He decided that he was going to see us one by one, like schoolboy,
Oh no.
each one, exactly what we're trying to avoid. So when my turn came to see him, I had an 8 memo which I had prepared for a discussion. So he then said to me, Dr. Kurunov said that I must not release my 8 memo to the media after the talks. I was quite fed up. I said, this is my 8 memo and I can do what I like with it. Oh, Mr. Porter got so angry. I remember my young secretary, Eric Gobane, I haven't forgotten that. He was shocked. He said he saw this part of Mr. Pete moving like this. He was so angry and he pointed a finger at me and said, that's why you couldn't get on with my predecessor, because you communicated with him through the media and so on. At that time, Dr. Kurun, of course, was at this meeting and was begging Dr. Mdaloso, who was accompanying me, to talk to me, not to release it. But I refused to do that.
So you went ahead?
No, I refused. I said I will release it, you see. Then, after that, for 5 years, I didn't meet with the board. We invited him for dinners and things like that. I just would not do it. Until Dr. Anton Rupert, one of the rich South African businessmen, approached me because I knew him well and said they were very unhappy that I and Mr. P.W. Porter are not on speaking terms. Can you arrange a meeting between us? So I said, no, I didn't mind. So indeed, he arranged a meeting at Somerset West in a house that his company had, the Flutie kept. And Mr. Porter was accompanied by Dr. Gerrit Verleun. I was accompanied by Bishop Alpheus Zulu and Dr. Oscar Zomo. And we talked there, of course, and resolved our problem of not talking to each other at least. Then, of course, after that, you remember, he then got ill and he retired. Then F.W.D. de Klerk became the president, and he approached me and said that he wanted us to negotiate the future. So I said that we need to elect people in his national party and I in Inkatha to look at the factors that impede negotiations. So that committee was elected. And one of the conditions we made, we said that under no circumstances, can we participate if Mr. Mandela and other prisoners and exiles are not released. We said that that was actually non-negotiable. And that is why, for instance, when Mr. F.W. de Klerk in February 1990, when he mentioned that he was releasing Mr. Mandela, I was the only person he mentioned by name as having assisted him to come to the conclusion to release him. Of course, Mr. Mandela had written a letter to me in 1989 decrying the fact that the ANC had started what they called the People's War. The armed struggle was supposed to be directed to the regime, to the South African Defence Force, but sadly, it was turned on us. So more than 20,000 African people, black people died. Between us, UDF, ANC on the one hand, and Inkatha and other organizations, because it was not only Inkatha leaders that were killed, even leaders of the PAC and AZAPO and others were also killed at that time.
Wow.
So Mr. Mandela, in the letter in 1989, said to me that as soon as he's released, he wants us to meet so that we can address this shameful internecine, fight between African people themselves. So indeed, when he was released, a few days later, he phoned me, and of course I was very excited that he was released and wanted us to have the meeting. But strangely, that meeting didn't take place. Mr. Mandela then at that time visited his home in what was called Transkei. And some of the traditional leaders there, Amakosi, they said, but Buthelezi and yourself are such good friends. How come that you haven't met him up to now? Mr. Mandela said to Amakosi, look, the leaders of the UDF and ANC almost throttled me, forbidding me, saying that under no circumstances should you meet Buthelezi. So we're not to meet with Mr. Mandela until the 29th of January 1991, which was almost a year after his release. It was only then that he came with a delegation of the ANC and I with a delegation of Inkatha. And we spent time in the Royal Hotel in Durban talking. I remember that our former president, Mr. Mbeki, was the scribe on the side of the ANC, and Mr. Walter Felgate was our scribe. And one of the things in our joint communique which we issued to the press stated that from now onwards, in order to address this disgraceful internecine struggle that was taking place, we would have rallies of ANC members and Inkatha members together, addressed by Ms. Mandela and myself. We're all very happy. It was a very happy occasion. Then, just a few days after that, I was invited to a place near Pietermaritzburg called Taylor's Halt to address a rally. So I contacted Mr. Mandela, I phoned him. He agreed with alacrity that we should start now addressing joint. But a few days before we were supposed to go there, the Secretary General of my party, Dr. Oscar Zomo, told me that Madiba is no longer going. So I phoned Madiba. I said, Madiba, I hear you're no longer going with me. He said, man, you know what? The leader of the ANC in your province of KwaZulu-Natal, Harry Gwala, who was also a leader of the Communist Party, brought a bus full of leaders of the ANC into Shell House. They didn't have Shell House, they had Shell House as the headquarters of the ANC. And all of them said that you are not going there with Pichiles. In the meantime, people were dying. It really makes my heart very sore of the lives that were dying in the meantime while they were doing that. They were refusing that we should meet with Madiba to address the problem. Then after that, of course, the negotiations started at Kempton Park, and we participated in the negotiations. And then, of course, an agreement was made to have the interim constitution, which actually decreed that any party that gets more than 10% in the 1994 elections would have seats in the government of national unity. So therefore, in 1994 then, the ANC, of course, won the election, but we got more than 10% too of the vote. So Mr. Mandela actually appointed me and some of my colleagues in Inkatha as ministers. So we participated in the government of national unity for 5 years. In 1999, the final constitution was then implemented, and there was no requirement there to have a government of national unity. But President Mbeki nevertheless said that in order to consolidate reconciliation between us, it was better, he would want me to become the deputy president. When he became president, we agreed on that. But just shortly after the election, he invited me again to his house in Pretoria. He then told me, pointed out some seats. He said, you know, on those seats were members of the ANC from your province. They have said to me, if I'm making you my deputy president, then in KwaZulu-Natal, where your party is in charge, you must give the position of premier to the ANC, which of course was an impossible thing for me to agree, because the voters would have killed me if I did that. So then I didn't become, but still Mr. Mbeki, wanting us to reconcile, he said that, but he still wanted me then to work with him even as a minister. And then I said, well, it was up to him. Then he said, no, I must continue as Minister of Home Affairs for another 5 years. Then I was Minister of Home Affairs in Mr. Mpegi's government.
Yes, wow. You know, I mean, just maybe to ask you two questions. That meeting in 1979 with Oliver Tambo, where they never got back to you, would you say that was a beginning of political intolerance, you know, introducing a culture of intolerance, because you had a different opinion on the armed struggle, and, you know, they were going to come back, you worked together, and that happened. Would you say those were some of the, you know, initial...
Thanks. Now I'll answer that question, but you find it very interesting what you're saying, because as I said to you earlier, the ANC was against policy of homelands, and that they shouldn't work with people who are participating like myself in a homeland government. So they didn't know about what the leader of the ANC, Uncles Albert Luthuli and Tambo, had actually urged me to take over. In fact, the 8 members of the ANC who broke away, led by Ambrose Makiwane, stated reasons why they broke away, and amongst the reasons, they stated that they resented Tambo's closeness to me. So there was division amongst them about me, to the extent that I actually wanted to publish a newspaper or a publication for Inkatha. Then I went to Sweden to look for money. And I approached a non-governmental organization they called CEDA. They said to me, well, we deal only with the ANC. We can't deal with another organization from South Africa. Unless Mr. Tambo agrees, we can't give you money. But the relations between me and Tambo were such that I got him to Stockholm. He came to Stockholm. But you're going to see how delicate this was. He came to Stockholm to say they must give me the money. Tambo came. And by sheer coincidence, at that time, a friend of mine, Reverend Andrew Young, he was then the envoy of the United States at the United Nations. He arrived at the same time as myself. And because we were friends, the person at whose house I was staying, the director of CEDA, invited him for lunch with me, and he said, "You'll not only see Buthelezi, your friend, but Tambo too." But he was speaking out of his turn, because Tambo did not want it to be known, that he was together with me. So what happened then? Lunchtime came. Reverend Andrew Young came. We had the lunch in the dining room. And I was told that Tambo never arrived. Tambo's lunch was served in a tray in the bedroom. You see?
Wow.
This is how I answer your question. It was that.
Wow.
Mr. Tambo was saving his skin, actually, when he denied that we didn't meet, that we met in 1979. Because the division within the ANC itself.
Another thing that, as we talk about our nation as well, Prince, this has been an amazing, background, and I think it would want us to sit, like I said, the whole day to just dig into the wealth of wisdom that you are sitting with. But moving to 2016 local government elections, what are some of the key points that the Inkatha Freedom Party is actually bringing? What are the things that are in your manifesto that you want us to be voting for?
In our manifesto, I would say that the key thing is integrity. We say that voters must trust us purely on our track record. Because even during that time when I was chief minister, we never, had any incidents of corruption at all. None whatsoever. Even when we were supposed as different homeland governments as to return money that was in our coffers, all of them failed to do so except myself. So we say in South Africa, things cannot just happen overnight. I was in government myself for 10 years. And I don't, of course, say that the government hasn't done anything, because that would be dishonest on my part, because I was part of the government and I know that there were things we did. But I say these things would be even better, than the things that they've been delivered. But the problem is the lack of integrity amongst leaders, because right through from the national level of government, corruption, is rife. If you go to the provinces, even sometimes premiers are involved, MECs are involved. Not to talk about the municipalities, because every day we have these ructions on our screens, because ANC members are actually demonstrating against the ANC because they are not satisfied, because if the money that is set aside to address some of the needs of our people went for that, I think our people would be more tolerant about the fact that we're still so poor and with so much unemployment and all that. But the trouble that what makes people wild is the fact that they know that the money has really been stolen at all levels of government. So I say, I don't believe that the IFP should promise people something that we cannot deliver. So we say that, but they should trust us. If they want people of integrity with a track record of actually serving people without corruption, then we say that you are there.
You are the people.
Yes.
But how are you going to ensure that every councillor that IFP puts out there is a person who upholds these? What are some of the things that IFP will be doing to ensure that they are not just, it's not lip service?
And we've had a major launch of our manifesto in Durban. And in fact, all the candidates have signed a pledge, and we're going to make them accountable on the basis of that pledge about exactly what you're asking about integrity and the fact that none of them should be involved in malfeasance and maladministration.
Talking about integrity, the church community, the Christian community, do you look at the Christian community as a constituency? The Christian community, do you look at them as a constituency? That is, you need to be responding to their needs, because of the values that govern Christianity, which integrity, all of that are part of. Are you looking to speak specifically to them as a constituency? Do you see them as a group of people that you need to be speaking to win elections?
Well, actually, I wouldn't say, because even in our party we've got people of other faiths. We've got Muslims as well, and we've got Hindus and so on. But of course, I'm a Christian, and actually, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian.
I saw it on your website.
Quite so. So therefore, I would say that people who uphold Christian values, we do expect that some of them may be attracted by that fact to us, because there's a party already, the ACDP, which actually labels itself as a Christian,
Christian party.
Yes, but as you're asking, I think, of course, I would expect Christians to actually be interested in the values that we uphold.
And when we look back, the 40 years of Inkatha Freedom Party since its formation, would you still say you are relevant to South Africa's the reasons that it was founded then to today?
I don't know what you mean by relevance, but I say to people, we never promise things we cannot deliver. And I say the things that we have achieved with, Inkatha has achieved, are there, In 1976, after Soweto, the ANC said, liberation now, education later. We countered that with education for liberation. We built schools. In fact, Dr. Ntato Matana of the Committee of 10 here in Soweto, who was a contemporary of mine at the University of Fort Hare, requested me to arrange for his children to come to KwaZulu for education. And Percy Koboza, who was leader of the World, a newspaper that was shut down by the apartheid regime, asked me to arrange for his children, because we were the only place where the education was going on. I built colleges for training of teachers right through the province, which the ANC closed down, right through the province. Not only that, they, ANC, were saying that, in fact, to support the University of Zululand was something of a betrayal. They called it a tribal college, But the king, my cousin, King Cyprian, and Amakosi, us, we supported the university to the extent that I was the chancellor of that university for 21 years, University of Zululand. And when I kept some of the graduates, when I congratulated them, they would say, but there are no jobs. They would whisper, no jobs. So Mr. Oppenheimer was a friend was a friend of mine. So one day he would talk about politics with him, and then he would say at the end, but you must tell us as business what we can do.
Mm.
So he said so one day. Then I said to him, I would like to have a technical built for our people, because white technicals were not accessible to Africans.
Mm.
So I built that technical. He gave his chairman's fund, donated 5 million, and other friends supported, and we built the Mangosuthu Technical, which has become the university. Mangosuthu University of Technology, which is there. I mean, things that I've done are there.
Yes.
I built many houses in many townships. Umlazi, for instance, there was no land for Umlazi. I approached Inkosi of the Tele clan, whose land it was, to build Umlazi, and I set up the KwaZulu Finance Corporation, which was the economic arm of my government, and encouraged young business people, helped young business people, and because commercial banks would not give money to black people because of security, of they wouldn't have security because they didn't have land and so on. I started a bank, Itala Bank, to help our people, and it still exists even now. So I say that on the basis of my track record, people can judge for themselves. If they think those things are the right things to do, then if they want that, then they should support us.
And with all these, my next question was going to ask you to give us examples, but you've just done that now, examples of some of the things that you've done. What about youth involvement? Are you developing young people? Some of the criticisms about Inkatha is that, after you, people don't know many other leaders that are coming. The issue of the party modernizing. How do you respond to that?
I don't know what you mean by modernizing. I don't see of the leader who is more modern than myself. What the connotation in this context of modernizing is. I wish I knew that, then I can answer your question. Because in Inkatha, we've got the youth wing. In fact, if you attend any of our rallies, we have a big rally tomorrow. If you attend it, you'll see that 90% of the people are young people that are there. I mean, some of our young leaders are even in parliament. The leader of our youth wing, the youth brigade, Mkulego Shema, is a member of parliament, and who has already made his mark in parliament. We've got another young person, Liesel van der Merwe, and so on. I don't know about developing youth, what is meant. During my time as chief minister, I actually also had a mandate in Matleng, where some of the people who hadn't done, young people who hadn't passed their matrics, were taught skills, Thousands of people came out of that. I've always been very close to young people. In fact, I get very embarrassed when I do door to door. Some people saying that, it was through your bursary that I'm where I am. Just 2 weeks ago, I attended a function in Durban where a young professor, whom we gave a scholarship under the government of KwaZulu, wanted me to be present because I cannot count things that that I've done, that we do and done for young people. And when people say that we're not modern, I don't know what is meant. But our membership now is predominantly young.
I think one of the most recent developments this past week, there's been a lot of violence that has happened. What is your response to that? Even in KwaZulu-Natal, with the NFP party, what is your response to that, and how can we avoid further violence, even as we've just talked about the background?
Well, unfortunately, very unfortunately, I say that chickens have come home to roost, because the ANC had a strategy of making the country ungovernable.
Sure.
They said they wanted the townships to be made ungovernable. I try to warn them that if we did that, then they would be ungovernable even when we were in charge. And unfortunately, that prophecy has come about. Burning of school at Vuani, more than 20 schools and so on. At that time of the 76, they were encouraging destruction of schools and so on, burning down of buildings, burning down of clinics and so on. That became a culture. In fact, they should celebrate because that's what they sowed, sadly. That's what I'm saying. It's very sad. Just now, we have a very serious problem. I'm glad you asked me this question because yesterday I was at SABC. SABC having asked me to actually be given a slot to appeal to members of the IFP because the NFP, which broke away from us in 2011, it has been the Constitutional Court, the Electoral Court has decided that they won't participate because they were late in submitting their deposit. But now they are blaming this on me and Carter, and they've been demonstrating even yesterday at Dumbe. They assaulted our members at Wokatamba, they assaulted our member at Escort. Some of them have been arrested for doing so, and in the Facebook, some of them have said some people are going to die, and so that there are going to be a lot of by-elections, meaning that they're going to kill our candidates, and so on. All I can do, unfortunately, their leader is not well, but still, in spite of this fact, I tried to say that our administrative secretary should contact Professor Kubisa, who is a member of parliament and who was the Secretary General. In spite of the fact, of course, that Professor Kubisa has been toing and froing, saying that he has resigned, he has withdrawn, and so I don't know what fish he is now. Whether he's not a fowl nor fish to me, because I don't know whether he's still the Secretary General or what. But I said that because of the importance of human life, that we should approach them about it and talk about it. But our secretary phoned, all their phones were closed. He tried the chairman, all were phoned. But as I've said, I must repeat, if Kamakwaza Msibi was well, I should be communicating with him. But unfortunately, he's in such a state that I cannot communicate with him.
I think for me, just talking about even as we close this, talking about what is currently happening as what I'm saying, the current developments being seeds that were sown of violence. Recently, the South African Council of Churches hosted a reconciliation. It was in June. They brought different parties that were involved in the struggle. The Afrikaners and the ones that were in the army, and students that were part of 76 to bring about reconciliation. Do you think that the focus of reconciliation has always been what the apartheid government did to black people? Do you think we need a session, another one, where we as blacks, we need to take ownership of the things that we've done wrong, and even probably saying we were wrong, we should have listened to your advice about not going the violence route? Do you think that we should consider having such a conversation?
Yes, we should do so. For instance, even in Parliament, as opposition parties now and then, we do get together, but I don't think that we've reached the stage which you mentioned just now. I don't think we've done so. Even in KwaZulu-Natal, there have been talks which have been going on between the ANC and the IFP, but I don't think that it has been taken seriously as you suggest, because I think we should do so, and I think it's only when we take ownership of it, as you put it, of the whole process of reconciliation, that it can actually have the potential of bringing about peace.
and obviously healing to the people that were involved, and I think that's what we need. Prince, you mentioned that you know yourself, you're a Christian, you're a believer, yet you know your party is open to all South Africans. Do you have you know, people, even as you've given us the background, you've worked with reverends and you know in over the years, but today do you have people from the Christian communities, the leaders from the Christian communities that are partners, not just partners, but they play a role within the party?
Well, I really don't understand the question, but our Secretary General until about 5 years ago was an ordained minister,
Okay.
Reverend Zondi. He was a pastor of the Lutheran Church. But to go back to the issue of the churches, I think it's like opening a can of worms as far as me and the churches are concerned. Because during the struggle, you know, the churches, actually, when Miss Mandela requested my Archbishop Tutu, to be in charge of the TRC, I was the only one in the cabinet who objected, because he had been the patron of the United Democratic Front, of the UDF. He confessed this to me. He said he was no longer yet resigned, but he was. He was aligned to them. And during that time, during that People's War, funerals of UDF people and ANC were attended by high-profile churchmen, but none attended our funerals. And during this question, of sanctions and so on, later the churches, the Southern Council of Churches, supported that. So that distanced me, although my first cousin, Dr. Manas Buterezi, at one time was the leader in the Council of Churches. But it really, I said I was a very lonely Christian. When they produced the Kairos document, which justified war, as a Christian and an Anglican, in 1985, when I went to see the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is the head of the Anglican Communion, I sent a little memo beforehand, wanting to know whether he thinks this is time now for what Christian theologians have struggled with for centuries, the issue of the just war, whether it was time for a just war. But quite clearly, he had contacted my Archbishop, because when I go to Lambeth Palace, his residence, even before I sat down, he said he had read my memorandum. And he said to me, do other leaders agree with me? So I said, Your Grace, you are a leader too. Does everyone agree with you? And before he answered, I said, I'm also interested if you can tell me whether everyone agreed with Christ. Of course, he just looked at me. So I'm showing you that we have, although I'm a Christian, I have a very checkered relationship with that. But the chairman of my party at the time was a bishop of the Anglican Church, Bishop Alpheus Zulu. At one time, he was president of the World Council of Churches, and he had to resign actually from that because of those conflicts.
And maybe just again to ask the candidates that you are nominating, the candidates of the IFP, how do we make sure that these are men and women who will not just be upright with the law, but they are people who hold integrity in their hearts, in how they conduct their personal lives? What is it that you are doing as a party to
how can ensure? I do that?
No, I'm just saying that
because they are nominated by various branches.
Yes.
They are not nominated by me. So I mean, I don't know how I could be expected then to do that.
Will you then?
Because they are nominated by their parties, and I've already said that there is a pledge. I prepared a pledge for them to make. I don't know what more I can do more than that.
Thank you so much for this time that we've had. I think, voters are going to have a very interesting time. But, with this last few minutes, just tell the viewers of WOWtv why they should be voting Inkatha Freedom Party in these upcoming elections, and just looking directly to
But I've already said so. I said I'm putting my record.
Yeah.
I said this. If when I was in charge as chief minister, when I was minister of home affairs, these are the things I did. I said if they think those things are worthwhile, and if there are things that they think should be done for our people to address poverty, etc. I was interested even in the workers. I was the chancellor of the Institute for Workers in Durban, and the biggest trade union in the world, the AFL-CIO in the United States, awarded me jointly with Dr. Neil Agate the George Meany Human Rights Awards because of what I did for workers at that time. I mean, these are things that I did, and these are the things that I believe in. These are the things I'm offering that if I'm given the opportunity in governance, I will continue with them. So the worker must choose whether they want those things, they want all those things I did to continue or not, because they're not, many of them are not taking place now.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. It has just been an awesome time of reflection of what has happened in our nation, and also just getting insights of some of the contribution you've made in society, because sometimes we tend to forget. And thank you for continuing to to show that even at old age, people still bear fruit. You are one of a few, and we wish the Lord to keep you safe, that you will continue this good work with this upcoming election until the next elections. We see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, WOWtv viewers. This has been an awesome morning spent talking to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. He's just a living legend. He's played such a big role in shaping our country's politics. He continues to work with so much passion, which is totally admirable. As we go to these elections, I think it's time to reflect and think forward of how do we take our nation individually, how do we as young people, as he has done in his youth to this day, continue moving our nation forward. Thank you very much.